Hey guys, alright, so let's dive into our next project. So what I want to do is I want to teach y'all about grid drawings. And the reason for that is there are times when you will possibly get small pictures, such as, you know, some little bitty nothing picture of, let's just say, Billy's son on here. Smiling. But Billy wants a really big picture of his side, okay? So we're just gonna pretend like this is our really big picture, okay? Now you've got to figure out how to draw his son to look like his son and not just some person, okay? Because that's the whole point, is that it looks like his kid. One problem is Billy has provided you with a pretty much, we're going to say, square canvas, but his picture is not a square, okay? So if we've got a canvas and we can't change the size of this, we're going to have to change this, right? So we may just have to crop off a little bit of Billy Jr.'s outfit here and not include this, so that the part that we are drawing is now a square, which is proportionate to our square canvas. So I'm going to show you an example of this. One thing that I needed to do a grid drawing for was for my daughter's room. I found this little picture on the internet and decided I was going to blow it up and make it into a mural on her wall. Okay, so I gridded this thing off. Had to take the little picture, make it proportionate to the size of the wall, so that way I could section my drawing off, and I'll explain all of that. Okay, so there's Shelby's room. Alright, so this is the paper that I'm going to be using that is going to be where my drawing is going to be on. This is going to be the picture that I'm going to be referencing. So what I'm going to do is I need to measure my paper. And it is 11 by 14 inches. Now my paper, let's go ahead and let's write that down. So my large sheet is 11 by 14. My smaller picture is 8 by 10 and 1, 3, 7/8. 8 by 10 and 7/8 would be 0.88. Alright, so how I'm going to do this, set it up like a cross multiplication. Alright, so 11 is our short side and 8 is our short side, you know, of our each piece. So we're going to line those up across from each other. We got our 11 by 14 and our 8. And let's just say let's say our 8 can change. So let's keep our 10.88 and then make this here our Z. That's what we're trying to find, is how much we're going to need to cut off of the sides. All right, so what we're gonna do is our cross multiplication. So we're gonna multiply 11 times our 10.88, which is 119.68. And then we're going to divide it by the other number, 14. So that leaves us with our z, which is 8.54. Now we already knew it was 8, so that's not going to work because that's saying we need to actually make it bigger. Okay, so we are going to have to keep our 8 and we'll have to trim down this number. So let's rewrite it. 11 by 14. And now we're going to keep our shorter side and then make this our z. Okay? I know this is probably a little bit confusing. And we're going to cross multiply 14 times 8. That is 112 divided by our 11, because we multiplied these and got 112, and now we're going to divide by our 11. So that means z is going to equal 10.18. That means we have to cut this down to 10.18. And we may cut a little bit off the top and a little off the bottom. We just have to decide what's gonna look the best. So we're still trying to make this 10.18. All right, so if we know anything about our measurements here, so we've got 16ths, your eighths, quarters, your half marks, and then these are your inches, okay? Your whole. All right, so if we're trying to make 10.18, that means, all right, we know this is 10.25, so that's too far. This is an eighth, which is 0.125, so that's a little too small. So we'll go at this 3/16 mark, which is 0.18, right there, that little mark. So we're gonna line it up. Make us another one so we can draw a straight line. So again, what we were going over was how to figure out how to make the picture that we're going to be using proportionate to our paper, which this size is not going to change. It's kind of like our wall over there. We got to figure out how to make our picture same proportion as the wall is, okay? And then becomes the fun gridding part. That is where we're going to put a grid on both our picture and our paper that we're drawing on. So we know our paper size is 8 by 10 and 10.18, which is 3/16 basically. Try to make this a little bit easier on myself and just kind of center up where 10 and the edge of the ruler are equal distances away from the edge. And then I'm going to put a mark at 5. And same thing down here. I'm gonna stick this underneath so that I don't get it on my actual paper. All right, so I've now divided my picture in half that way. And then I will do the same thing again, dividing this section that is 5 into 2.5. The reason that I do 2 measurements is because, like here, if I just did 1, and then I tried to draw a straight line, there is no way of knowing if I'm on a straight path like these. That's why I always make at least 2 marks. Also, your pictures will be grayscale, printed off of my printer. Because these drawings are going to be black and white. So I can continue to make this grid as small as I want to. If a section like this one looks like there is a lot going on, if it's too much detail and everything going on, what I can do is continue to break up this grid and make it even smaller. So I might just go ahead and divide all of these in half. Do it again down here. And then I'll do the same this way, and I can probably come back to you once I'm done. Okay, so I have gridded my picture even more. And the reason for this is so that I can grid my paper, which is the same proportions as my picture. I'm gonna grid my paper. I'm gonna do this with pencil though. That way, and I'm gonna do it really lightly so that it can be erased, because I'm not going to want it in my final piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because I divided it, basically I divided it in half, and then that in half, you know, in half, every section basically cut down into half, again and again and again. And then same way this way. So I'm going to do the same amount of lines on here. So I'll start, I know this is 11. Nope, I don't know that's 11. I know that's 14. So half of 14 is 7. So I'm just doing the same process that I just did, just it's gonna be a little bigger because my paper's a little bigger than my picture. Okay, so nice and light. It's half of 7 is 3.5. So when it comes to time to measure in class and to do the cross multiplication, I will definitely be helping y'all through the process, okay? Half of 3.5 is 1 3/4. All right, so now we've got the same number of lines on our paper this way that we do here. See, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Now we have to do these that are across here. Okay, this is the number that I knew was 11. 1 3/8. 1 3. Man, my ruler is really bad, especially in that area. Let's see if I can find another one. Okay, see if this one works any better. All right, so we're trying to, this is a little harder to read. 1 3/8. It's right there. What I might do is put like a little dot, and that way I can find it a little easier. Whoa. Okay. Now we'll do it on this side. Also, when you're using a ruler, you don't want to just hold it on one end, because then as you're moving your pencil along, you may move the ruler. That's why it's very important to kind of press in multiple places if you can towards the center. And ideally, I should be lined up to where this is turned, but I'm trying to keep this all in view. Also, with your ruler, you want to make sure, like I'm right-handed, so the ruler is going to be maneuvered with my left hand and held in place with my left hand. Okay, too many times I see students that are trying to hold with their left hand over here and then reach across, and then their arms look all tangled and weird trying to hold the ruler and then draw. So the ruler should go between your two hands, okay? Held by your non-dominant hand so that your dominant hand that usually draws can draw your straight lines. Okay, so now my grid should match. I don't know why this feels better this direction. So basically, what's going to happen is I'm going to look at this as individual small pictures, okay? Whatever I see in this tiny square is going to go right here in this one. So I'm thinking of this as its own little picture. I'm not worried about the rest of this right now, okay? But within my picture, I do want to try to notice some things. One thing that might help you is to make like a viewfinder. And the way we can do this, get my ruler back out, is just measure what the square size is. So we got 1 1/4 by a little bit of an odd size right here. I'll make its own mark. All right, so I'm making my initial line, which I made too long. Okay. And I'm just going to try to trust myself, hopefully, that I'm making this into a right angle. Okay. And I can get my little cutting mat out again. So this is the same thing. Instead of my pencil, I'm putting the blade in my dominant hand and cutting on the right side, the side that my dominant hand is on. Not reaching across or over. This little viewfinder can be used to block off whatever square that I'm in and help me to not pay attention to anything else. Now, another little tip of something that can help is to give yourself kind of markings of like where your halfway point is within your tiny square. So half of 1 1/4. Right here. This is 1 3 5/8. Sorry. This is our 5/8 mark. And we'll do it again here. 1 3 5/8. I'm just going to try to center this up on 1 and put a line at the half mark. Okay. So this trying to find something to get on a square. All right. So what this will do is just help my eye to understand where things are within a square. So if you can see, this point here kind of comes right in the middle. So if I go to that square, which is 3 over and 1 down, so 3 over, 1 down, that's this square here. Put my viewfinder back on. Here, trying to make room and stay in the frame. So what I can do, 3 over 1 down, is kind of put a dot in the middle, and then I look here and I say, okay, this line is going to come down. It's not going to go all the way to this corner, but it's going to be a little bit up, not quite to the middle of in between here and here, but a little bit farther down. So not here, but a little bit further down like that. It's going to be that line. And it's a little bumpy, okay? Then this one kind of comes up from almost in between here and here. It's a little farther right. So if this is my midpoint, and I'm saying this is the middle here, I said it's a little farther right. Kind of comes up at an angle. It's not straight up like this. It's kind of over to the side. Okay, so you're trying to pay as much attention to all of the details of like where things hit. This little line here almost comes to that center point line. This darker one goes over here past it further. Okay. So this section is done in terms of line. And that's the way I would kind of go about this, is get all of your line work, everything kind of drawn out first. So we were here, the one next to it. Okay, here's kind of my halfway point here. It goes to about my quarter line here. And comes up. Goes down. Back up. Okay. And then you just take your time moving through the picture. All right. And then once you get all of your line work down, then it's time to go in for your shading. So this is where you're paying attention to your values. Okay, noticing where your darkest darks are, and then where you've got highlights, midtones. And to get this, if you don't feel comfortable using, just one pencil, if you have a hard time getting different shades of gray, then I do have drawing pencils at all of the schools. It's not a set just like this, that your set is actually better than this one. But you'll notice that they've got little numbers and letters on them. And I'm going to explain what these mean. All right, so it goes 4H, and this is not every set. So this is just for this set that I've got here. This would be the order that I would put this in. 4H, the H is going to be hard. The bigger the number, then the harder it's going to be on this side. And as it goes this way, it's going to get softer, the lead is. Then it goes 2H, so 2, that number's dropping down, it's getting softer in the lead, so it's going to draw slightly darker. Then it's HB. HB is in the very middle, okay? Then we have our 2B. So we've got H's over here, our HB, then we go to our B's. So 2B, 4B, and 6B. So it's getting softer, hardest to softest. So I'll just go ahead and write that. We've got our 4H, 2H, HB, 2B, 4B, 6B. These are going to be hard or draw light. These are going to be soft and draw dark. Okay, there's also other ones that will be in other sets. There might be an H right there. There might be just a B there. You might have a 6H. Some sets that I've seen, they've got, odd numbers too. So HB, H, 1H, 2H, 3H, 4H, 5H, 6H, but I don't have those kind of sets. I have the even numbers for whatever reason. And then I believe that the 6s are as extreme as mine get. Okay, so the way that this works is if I were to keep the same pressure, so here's my 4H, if I kept the same pressure with all of these pencils and drew with them, here's the 2H, then it should theoretically get darker as I go. Keeping that same pressure, just the lead is softer in them. Okay. So these pencils are just meant to help you if maybe you aren't as great at controlling the pressure with your pencil. I personally like to work with a softer lead, and then I'm just very, very gentle when it comes to my lighter areas. And then I can be, you know, really dark when I get to my shadows and dark spots, okay? Now, when you begin your shading, I personally start with my darkest areas. I hunt out and find where my blackest blacks are, and that's what I color first. So me personally, I probably wouldn't be using my viewfinder for that. I would just be, you know, looking, finding my darkest darks here and constantly checking this, okay? Don't just get busy coloring, shading stuff here and then not looking back and referencing your picture, okay? This is very important that you continue to look at this, okay? None of my students that I know of have photographic memories, so it's important to continue to study and look, observe your reference photo, okay? This is what we're referencing. All right, so some of you will have already picked out your pictures. I'm printing them out and I will have them for you next week. If you don't make a decision, or for some reason you're not at school or whatever this week, I will have plenty of pictures and you can choose one, and we will have until our Thanksgiving break on this, okay? So that should give you 5 weeks. So basically 5 hours to do a grid drawing with what I expect to have some very good details, okay? We need to have a really good range of shading so that you're getting just super, super dark all the way down to nothing where there's just paper showing. But you know, we need to really practice your pressure and getting used to being able to see those different ranges, okay? So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some really good pieces of artwork, and I hope that some of these will be some that we'll see that I can hang up either in I3 or for the cafe tap lanyap thing that we do. And all that stuff will be after Christmas time, so we don't have to worry about that right now. If you happen to get done with this project early before Thanksgiving break, you will have the opportunity to continue to do more Christmas tags. But anyways, if you want, something you can start practicing is maybe your pressure. So working on making sure that you can get super light to super dark. And if you want to start practicing to see if you can do the grid and making things proportionate, that would be great as well. But that's all I got for tonight. Oh, no, I don't. Hold on. When you start to do your shading, one thing that you will notice is, since I'm saying start dark and work light, that means that you're going to be working all over your picture, okay? And then you just put down your darkest dark. So what's going to happen is it will start to rub off onto your hand. So what I'm going to suggest is that you get some sort of scrap paper, whatever you want it to be, just a clean piece of paper. You can, you know, regular copy paper, not something hard like this, and just keep it underneath your hand so that the oil and the moisture from your hand is not smearing the pencil lead all around and smudging everything up, okay? So yeah, just something to keep underneath so that you're protecting your artwork, okay? All right, that's all I got. See y'all later.